Everything changed in a matter of seconds. Or rather, it's about to. Welcome to NFL Nexus. This is your premier destination for the most intense, highly detailed, and cinematic breakdowns of the stories that are actively shaping the gridiron. If you want to understand the true, unfiltered anatomy of a franchise standing right on the brink of collapse, well, you're in exactly the right place. Do me a favor and subscribe to the channel right now. Go ahead and like this explainer and comment down below with what you thought. And look, if you truly want to support the channel and go deeper into the tape with us every single week, consider becoming a channel member today. So today, we are taking a microscope to a situation that is literally radiating heat across the entire National Football League. We are looking at a franchise facing a critical, unforgiving turning point. We're looking at the Indianapolis Colts. You see, the crisp, optimistic air of summer training camp? That's gone. It's been entirely replaced by this suffocating pressure cooker. You can actually feel it. You can feel it in the streets of downtown Indianapolis, echoing through the empty, cavernous corridors of Lucas Oil Stadium. The tension is palpable. The patience of a fiercely loyal fan base isn't just wearing thin, it is completely exhausted. Every single throw in practice, every dropped pass, every single syllable spoken at a press conference is being magnified under a blinding, unforgiving spotlight. Because in the National Football League, patience is a luxury absolutely no one can afford.
And this brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? What happens when time runs out? Seriously, what happens when the clock hits zero on your grand master plan? The landscape of professional football is ruthlessly unforgiving. It really is. You can have the vision, you can draft the blue-chip talent, you can build up this amazing locker room culture, but eventually, the bill comes due. This isn't just about X's and O's anymore. We're way past that. This is about legacy. This is about pure, unadulterated survival. In this explainer, we aren't just looking at a team trying to win a watered-down division on a Sunday afternoon. No. We're looking at the raw psychology of a front office that knows, they absolutely know, the sand in the hourglass is gone. When there is no more next year, how does a franchise actually operate? Do they crumble under the immense weight of expectation, or is pure desperation the ultimate catalyst for greatness? Let's find out.
Section 1. A franchise on the brink. I want you to take a breath and put yourself in the building. Really feel the gravity of the situation as the Indianapolis Colts march into the 2026 season. Because, guys, this is no longer a rebuild. You get a few years for a rebuild. This is no longer a transition phase. The grace period has officially, unequivocally expired, and the stark reality of the present moment is staring this entire organization right in the face. As training camp opens in 2026, the expectation in Indianapolis is terrifyingly clear. It isn't just to be competitive. It isn't just to show a little improvement or build some momentum for the future. No, they have to win something of immense significance, and they have to do it right now, today. And what does immense significance actually mean for this regime? It means a division title. It means hoisting that AFC South banner at the absolute bare minimum. It means a deep, undeniable playoff run where they aren't just participating as a wild card team happy to be there, but actively dictating the terms of January football. You can literally feel the tension out there on the practice field at Westfield. It's thick. The local media, the national pundits flying in, the diehard fans filling the bleachers in the sweltering heat. Everyone knows exactly what's at stake here. Every missed tackle in a routine drill, every overthrown ball in 7-on-7s, it all carries this heavy, lingering consequence. The 2026 Colts are not just carrying their own ambitions, they are carrying the incredibly heavy baggage of the last half-decade. The pressure is mounting by the second, creating an environment where diamonds are either formed or completely, violently crushed into dust. Section 2. The Defiant Confession. And this brings us to the man at the absolute center of this storm, General Manager Chris Ballard, the architect of it all, the man whose fingerprints are on every single locker in that building. At his opening presser, under the blinding lights of the media room, the focus wasn't on the flashy new rookies, and it certainly wasn't on the playbook. It was squarely on his own neck. And what he said, man, it sent shockwaves through the entire NFL landscape. To really understand the magnitude of his comments, we have to look at the contract. Chris Ballard is entering the final year of a 5-year extension that he signed way back in 2021. Now, I want you to think about how long ago 2021 was in NFL years. It feels like an entirely different era, doesn't it? When that pen hit the paper 5 years ago, Frank Reich was still the head coach. The team had just traded for Carson Wentz, totally convinced they were one veteran quarterback away from a wide-open Super Bowl window. There was a vision of long-term stability, a promise of a perennial powerhouse being constructed, brick by agonizing brick, behind a historically dominant offensive line. But as we all know, NFL stands for not for long. Those foundational pieces, They crumbled. The head coaches changed, the quarterbacks became a seemingly endless revolving door. And now, operating as a lame duck general manager in the final year of a deal is arguably one of the most perilous positions in all of professional sports. You have no safety net. None. You are walking a razor-thin tightrope without a harness, suspended thousands of feet in the air, with everyone just waiting to see if you fall. Which leads us to this exact defining moment. A reporter asks the inevitable question about seeking a new extension to gain some job security, which is what 99% of front office executives do in this spot. And Ballard, with this cold, defiant look on his face, delivers this exact quote. "No, I wouldn't do one. I'm on the last year of my deal. We need to win." Just let the gravity of those words sink in for a second. This is not standard GM PR speak. This isn't dodging the question with some slick corporate jargon about focusing on the team or taking it one day at a time. This is a man looking dead into the camera and admitting, out loud, "I don't deserve an extension." It's a defiant confession of accountability that you almost never see in this league. Look, modern general managers are masters of self-preservation. They spin narratives, they blame injuries, they ask for patience while the latest draft class develops, they do whatever it takes to survive. Ballard did the exact opposite. He put himself on the hottest of hot seats willingly. He drew a massive line in the sand. By saying, "No, I wouldn't do one," he's telling his players, his coaching staff, and the fans sitting at home that there are no more excuses. The time for building? That's over. The time for winning is the only thing left on the clock. Section 3. Years of falling short. Now, to fully grasp why a general manager is willing to publicly bet his entire career on this single, solitary season, we have to pivot to the cold, hard historical context. We need to critically examine the agonizing history that has constructed this do-or-die pressure cooker over the last several years, 70 and 78. That is Chris Ballard's overall record since taking the top job before the 2017 season. Now, what's really interesting here is what that specific number represents emotionally to a fan base. 70 wins, 78 losses. It is the absolute hallmark of agonizing mediocrity. It's the purgatory of the NFL. You aren't bad enough to consistently draft at the very top and grab a generational, franchise-altering savior year after year like some teams do, but you sure aren't good enough to actually matter when the weather turns cold in January. For nearly a decade, the Indianapolis Colts have been trapped in this maddening middle ground. Think about the high-profile moves that kept them anchored in this purgatory. The relentless carousel of veteran quarterbacks, Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan. Each move was meticulously designed to be a quick fix, a bridge to contention, but each one ultimately left the franchise just treading water in the deep end. The raw data behind the struggle shows a team that flashes absolute brilliance, only to inevitably stumble when the lights get the brightest. That sub-.500 record over such a long tenure, that is exactly why the grace period has violently snapped shut. But the true pain points behind that record lie in the post-season drought. Let's methodically break down this agonizing stretch, because the context here is absolutely crucial. 4 straight missed playoffs, 4 consecutive years of packing up lockers in early January while the rest of the league plays on, 4 years of watching rival teams fight for the Lombardi Trophy from the quiet comfort of the couch. In the modern NFL, where parity is literally designed to give every single team a chance to turn it around quickly, missing the postseason 4 years in a row is an absolute eternity. And furthermore, they have only secured 2 playoff appearances since Ballard took over all the way back in 2017. 2 in almost a decade of football. When you compile the draft capital utilized, the massive free agency dollars spent, and look, we are talking about historic, market-resetting extensions for homegrown talent like Quentin Nelson and Shaq Leonard. When you add up the sheer human effort poured into this franchise, a return on investment of just 2 playoff appearances is a catastrophic failure to launch. It really is. You don't hand out hundreds of millions of dollars to elite linemen and linebackers just to sit at home when the playoffs start. The investment simply hasn't matched the yield, period. But you know what? It's not just that they missed the playoffs. It is how they missed them last season that is actively haunting this building today. Look at the timeline of this collapse. Week 10 of last year, an 8-2 record. They were the kings of the world. The narrative was finally beautifully shifting. The Ballard master plan was finally bearing fruit for everyone to see. Fans were literally booking flights for the postseason. The defense was swarming. The offense was clicking on all cylinders. And then the collapse. A devastating, agonizing, slow-motion car crash of a 7-game losing streak from Week 11 to Week 17, from 8-2 to 8-9. Guys, it is almost mathematically impossible to fail that spectacularly, yet they lived it. It was death by 1,000 cuts. A blown coverage in the 4th quarter of Week 12, a brutal, primetime heartbreaker in Week 15 where the offense stalled on the 1-yard line with a season on the brink. The psychological damage of a collapse like that cannot be overstated. You don't just wash that off in the shower. It seeps into the floor floorboards of the facility. It creates this phantom playoff berth that was violently ripped away, leaving a deep, aching psychological scar that defines the immense, suffocating pressure of this current 2026 training camp. Section 4, the quarterback complication.
Now, every collapse in the NFL has a catalyst, and you cannot tell the story of the Colts' recent struggles or their desperate hopes for the future without introducing the absolute most critical variable on the gridiron, the man under center. Right in the middle of that catastrophic downward spiral, the absolute worst-case scenario became a chilling reality. Quarterback Daniel Jones suffered a devastating season-ending injury. It happened in the blink of an eye. A collapsed pocket, a brutal blindside hit on a freezing Sunday afternoon, and suddenly, the entire trajectory of the franchise was violently altered. This was the exact moment the team's spine snapped last year. Think about it. When your starting quarterback goes down during a precarious, high-stakes part of the season, it sends a shockwave of panic through the entire 53-man roster. The playbook immediately shrinks. The defense suddenly feels this overwhelming need to be absolutely perfect, which ironically causes them to press, overcompensate, and make more devastating mistakes. Jones going down didn't just end his season. It effectively ended the Colts' season, serving as this massive anchor that dragged them down through that brutal 7-game losing streak. And now, as they enter 2026, the echo of that injury is the absolute loudest sound in the facility.
And the reason that specific injury was so utterly devastating is perfectly captured right here in the data. Let's really analyze what they actually lost. Look at Daniel Jones's 2025 statistics before his body gave out. 3,101 passing yards, 19 passing touchdowns, and crucially, only 8 interceptions. So the absolute crucial point here is efficiency. In the modern, hyper-aggressive NFL, a 19-8 touchdown to interception ratio is absolute gold. It means you are taking care of the football. It means you are executing Shane Steichen's incredibly complex offensive scheme with surgical precision. Steichen's system relies heavily on RPOs, lightning-fast pre-snap reads, and a quarterback who absolutely doesn't put the defense in bad situations. Jones was doing exactly that. He was keeping his team in every single game by simply avoiding the catastrophic error. He was executing the offense at a remarkably high level. And guys, these are the exact numbers the front office desperately hopes to build on now that he is expected to return fully healthy. They know they had the formula working beautifully at 8-2, and Daniel Jones was the engine making that entire machine hum. If they are going to save Chris Ballard's job, Daniel Jones doesn't just need to be healthy. He has to perfectly replicate and frankly exceed this exact level of hyper-efficient play.
Section 5. Injuries and mounting obstacles.
But the NFL doesn't let you just hit copy and paste from the good times. That would be too easy, right? As the 2026 season dawns, the injury bug hasn't left Indianapolis. It has simply found new targets, continuing to plague Chris Ballard's master plan. Just as camp opens, a massive new hurdle appears on the track. Key wide receiver Alec Pierce has officially been placed on the physically unable to perform, or PUP list. Now, why does this matter so much? Because when you are relying on a quarterback returning from a severe season-ending injury, he needs all of his weapons operating at absolute peak capacity. Pierce is a critical deep threat for this team. He's a player who stretches the defense vertically, taking the top off the secondary and creating massive, vital space underneath for the tight ends and running backs to operate. Without him on the field, defenses will just crowd the box and dare Jones to beat them outside. Putting Pierce on the shelf before the first preseason game even kicks off is a stark, terrifying reminder that the roster is already fraying at the edges. Now, the pressure shifts massively to the rest of the room. Guys like Josh Downs and Adonai Mitchell are going to have to step up immediately and command a terrifying amount of target share. It's the kind of subtle, early camp adversity that can quickly snowball into a disaster if a team's depth isn't built to withstand the brutal, weekly attrition of an 18-week war.
This creates a genuinely terrifying dynamic for the coaching staff and the front office. On one side of the scale, you have the massive optimism of Daniel Jones returning healthy, theoretically ready to recapture that magical 8-2 run. But on the exact opposite side, you have the stark reality of roster depletion staring you right in the face. It is an incredibly delicate balancing act. Seriously, how do you protect your returning quarterback while simultaneously dealing with untested backups stepping into crucial starting roles? You're asking a guy coming off a severe injury to carry the load while the weapons around him literally drop like flies. It requires flawless coaching, perfectly executed game plans that hide the roster's glaring weaknesses, and let's be honest, a little bit of sheer luck. And luck is something the Colts have been in desperately short supply of over the last 4 years. The margin for error here is absolutely zero.
Section 6. A do-or-die season.
All right, so we have looked at the agonizing history. We've analyzed the quarterback's pivotal statistics. We've looked at the devastating, compounding injuries. Now, we bring this narrative to its absolute climax. Let's summarize the immense, crushing weight placed on this upcoming campaign in Indianapolis. Let's look at the reality of the board. First, Zero assumed job security. Chris Ballard said it himself, on camera, he doesn't believe he deserves an extension right now, and ownership clearly agrees by letting him enter the year without a safety net. Second, the expiring contract. The clock is literally counting down to his last day as an employee if things don't drastically, miraculously change. And finally, the must-win mandate. And look, this isn't a mandate for a cute, feel-good 9-8 winning record. This is a mandate for post-season success. It is playoffs or unemployment. When you combine these three massive elements, you don't just have a football season. You have a referendum on an entire era of Colts football. The players in that room know the man who drafted them. The man who paid them millions of dollars is fighting for his professional life. That creates a desperate, ravenous energy in the locker room. It's an energy that can either forge an unbreakable championship brotherhood or cause the entire foundation to collapse spectacularly under the pressure.
Which leaves us with this final, lingering thought as we look toward Week 1. The 2026 season for the Indianapolis Colts is a ticking clock. The GM has confessed his vulnerability to the entire world. The quarterback is returning from the brink of a career catastrophe. The terrifying ghosts of an epic 7-game collapse are still actively haunting the hallways of Lucas Oil Stadium. Will they beat the buzzer, or will this be the final, tragic chapter of an era that promised so much but delivered so painfully little? That is the beauty and the absolute horror of the NFL. We are about to find out on the field. Thank you for diving into the tape with us on this explainer. Remember to subscribe to NFL Nexus, go ahead and like this explainer, leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and become a channel member today to support more deep dives just like this one. Until next time, the clock is ticking.